no school choice push would be complete without lifelong rich person and occasional education secretary Betsy DeVos, who wrote an op-ed titled, "Let's Liberate Kids from Race Indoctrination with School Choice."
All right, so what do we have going on here? This is John Oliver, if you don't know. He has a show called Last Week Tonight on HBO. And about a year ago, he did a segment, a full show, on critical race theory. And he's just like blatantly wrong. And some of the stuff he says is even just an obvious lie. It's real crazy. We're going to get into this. But before we do, please go over to check out May. She needs a couple of lungs. She has a rare condition. And if she doesn't get these lungs, she's probably not going to live for much longer. So go ahead. If you have a couple bucks, you can donate to her. I'm going to leave her Give, Send, Go down in the comments. Now let's dive into John Oliver.
We teach kids a lot in school, from reading to long division to how to play the fucking recorder for some reason. But recently, there has been a lot of concern over one particular thing that people worry that kids are learning.
Critical race theory is being taught in our schools. Critical race theory is bunk.
Critical race theory is a lie. From the first word to the last, from start to finish.
Racist critical race theory.
Critical race theory.
Critical race theory in the schools and the wokeness.
Let me tell you right now, critical race theory is bigoted, it is a lie, and it is every bit as racist as the Klansmen in white sheets.
Well, what does critical race theory say? It says that white people are oppressing people of other races, that people of other races cannot get ahead, that they start at a deficit. It says things like that. And is any of that stuff true? I mean, you, dear viewer, what race are you? Are you engaged in these things which are actively trying to harm people of other races? Are you? Is it even legal to do that? It's not. It's not legal to do that. And, I mean, what more can you get? You cannot make it more than just illegal. And I'm going to do another video about maybe there is something we'll look at, but that's for another day. Let's talk about John Oliver today.
But here's the thing. It is true. You have probably heard people yelling about critical race theory on TV for more than a year now, and people have been listening to that noise, especially judging by what's been happening at school board meetings across the country.
The Western culture and values that brought forth Christianity in the founding documents are being called evil and racist.
I'm not co-parenting with the government. It is not your job to force these ideas onto my child.
The narrative in this country is that we're all inherently racist, and I'm about sick of it.
It's a Marxist ideology, and we all know it.
All of these lessons have the intent to make our children feel disgust towards our nation.
This country isn't even a racist country. We elected Obama for 2 terms.
So, well, there you go. There's enough different people saying, hey, look, why are you teaching my children to be racist? Why are you teaching children to be racist against my children? All those examples right there just disprove everything that he's going to say throughout this entire segment. Let's see what he says here about Obama having been elected twice.
Hold on. America can't be racist because of Obama? I don't know if you remember the 2008 election, but things got pretty racist back then. People kept saying he was born in Kenya, people said he was a secret Muslim, and then a few years later, we elected that people president.
So, being born in Kenya is now racism? How the hell is that racism? Can somebody please explain to me? Maybe I didn't go to kindergarten and understand what words mean. They said that he's a Muslim? How is that a race? You can be any race you want to be and practice the religion of Islam. It's not exclusive. Doesn't care. Are you Muslim? Yeah, okay, we like you. Doesn't matter what you look like. Wow, talk about stupid.
Let's just agree to disagree on that one, shall we? That first meeting was in Loudoun County, Virginia, and it got so out of hand that the meeting was shut down early, and one guy passionately railing against CRT was arrested for trespassing, only to pop up on Tucker Carlson the very next day. So clearly, a lot of people are getting very mad about critical race theory right now, and instinctively, you probably know it's a manufactured panic. But the fact is, the fear around it is having...
Instinctively, you know it's a manufactured panic. Instinctively, that's my instinct is to say, hey, look, critical race theory is BS. We should be fighting back against it. And where's all this panic? Where are people just freaking out and rushing into buildings and smashing things and rioting and all this over CRT? People are speaking passionately at meetings. One guy, he got removed by police because, I don't know, who knows, maybe the police were told, hey, anybody who disagrees with critical race theory, take them out of the meeting. We've seen stuff like this happen before, so what the hell?
Real effects. Last year, Glenn Youngkin won the governor's race in Virginia after repeatedly promising that on his first day in office, he'd ban CRT from being taught in schools. Multiple states have passed laws outlawing the teaching of it, and Republicans are likely to make it a major focus of the midterms. When it comes to critical race theory, even if you think it has nothing to do with you, believe me, you're going to be hearing a lot about it this.
Yeah, but critical race theory has something to do with us because our tax dollars are funding these lies. Critical race theory is a pack of lies because it says, hey, in 1619, that's when the country the United States became a country because that was when the first black person showed up here, the first black slave or some crap.
Look at what critical race theory is and isn't, why the panic around it has spread, and what the consequences might be for everyone involved. And I realise some of you may already know what CRT is. After all, explainers on it have become one of the most common sites on the internet, but many are still very confused. A recent survey found that an overwhelming majority of US residents have a hard time articulating exactly what CRT is. And that even goes for some of those who've been yelling about it the loudest.
I've never figured out what critical race theory is, to be totally honest, after a year of talking about it. They're teaching that some races are morally superior to others, that some are inherently sinful and some are inherently saintly, and that's immoral to teach that because it's wrong.
Wow. I don't know if I've ever seen a person confidently complain about something just seconds after admitting they don't know shit about it. No, I never feel it.
Granted, that is a valid point that that he just made there about Tucker Carlson doing that. But maybe Tucker Carlson was saying, look, it keeps changing. The people who talk about critical race theory, who proselytize critical race theory, seem to be changing the definition of it. I don't know. I'm not in Tucker Carlson's head, so maybe he was doing that. We can only go by the words that he said, and yeah, that was pretty blatantly stupid of him.
But obviously, that is not what critical race theory is. It's the name given to a body of legal scholarship that began in the 1970s that attempted to understand why racism and inequality persisted after the civil rights movement.
Yes, and the word gender refers to my biological sex, but apparently I'm wrong.
The core idea is that racism is not merely the product of individual bias or prejudice, but also something that is embedded in legal systems and policies. As for Tucker's notion that it teaches that some races are superior to others, or that parents claim that it teaches kids to hate America, none of that is remotely true.
Except that it does do that. I don't care what the technical definition of critical race theory is, or what the initial founding of critical race theory was meant to be. That is what it's doing now.
My name's Frank McCormick. I'm a high school history teacher in the largest high school in Illinois. I'm sick of watching schools lie to the American people. I'm going to expose my school district to show the American people what critical race theory looks like in education, and to illustrate their absolute dishonesty. I recently appeared on Fox News to talk about CRT in education. Not long after, a school board member in my district went on Facebook to publicly accuse me of being hate-motivated, doing the work of racism, and misinforming the public. So I have a choice to make. Option A, I stop this, I try to explain to her I'm not any of these things, I apologize and try to save my job and my pension. Then there's option B, expose her, expose my school district, burn my career to the ground. Let's go, Brandon. So let's go. Here's an email between a DEI consultant and my district's director of equity and inclusion. Here, critical race theory was specifically cited for a review and application. Maybe Ms. Gonzalez wasn't aware of that email. In history classes, critical race theory should be introduced. I would definitely encourage it being introduced at the high school level. Whoops! Now let's look at what's going on in classrooms at my district. Students modeled the Black Panthers 10-point program to make their own 10-point program for a marginalized group. In literature class, students are asked to compare how South African apartheid compares to racism in America today. Here, Ibram Kendi's stamped from the beginning is used in a U.S. history class. Studying cultural appropriation. A lesson objective requiring students to analyze the relationship between systemic racism, implicit bias, and mass incarceration. A lesson objective asking students to analyze the relationship between slave patrols, policing, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Yeah, that's real. Literature classes reading the Black Lives Matter-inspired novel, The Hate U Give. This book makes a comparison between slave masters and the police. Here's a fun one. Students were taught what social systems and social structures are. The example the teacher chose? The prison industrial complex is a system designed to keep white people in power to use black people as a source of unpaid labor. One thing you may notice about these lessons and activities is they never ask the students, is there a relationship? It's, what is the relationship? It's basically teachers saying, here are my political beliefs, prove they're true. It's not a student's job to validate their teacher's political ideology. What I've just shown you is teaching through the lens of critical race theory. It's teaching through the assumptions that critical race theory is based upon. That America is systemically racist and that racism is not aberrative but normative. So a lot of times we hear that critical race theory isn't taught in schools. That's kind of true. The theory isn't taught. It's like the scientific method. When you go visit your doctor, he doesn't talk about the scientific method. He doesn't write about it. He uses it in his practice. Same thing here.
This is a system of denigrating white people. That's what critical race theory does. That's all it does.
Crenshaw, one of CRT's leading scholars, points out.
Critical race theory just says, let's pay attention to what has happened in this country and how what has happened in this country is continuing to create differential outcomes so we can become that country that we say we are. So critical race theory is not anti-patriotic. In fact, it is more patriotic than those who are opposed to it, because we believe in the 13th and the 14th and the 15th Amendment. We believe in the promises of equality, and we know we can't get there if we can't confront and talk honestly about inequality.
Yeah, but you're not talking honestly about inequality. You're lying and saying that black people are oppressed in the country because of whatever, make up the boogeyman, and that's what's happening. And if you're wondering about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, the 13th Amendment abolishes slavery. The 14th Amendment says that anybody born in the United States is a naturalized citizen. And the 15th Amendment gave voting rights to black men. Nobody that I know of is trying to get rid of any of those amendments. Have you heard about anybody trying to reverse any of those three, other than maybe the 14th Amendment, when Trump was talking about, yeah, you know what, maybe not everybody born here should just become a citizen automatically, because we got a lot of birthright tourism to this country, which is ridiculous. I mean, you can just come here, be from any country, it doesn't matter what your beliefs are. You have a baby here, that baby's automatically a citizen, and then they can come back when they're an adult and bring everybody along with them. It's kind of ridiculous.
She's right. And incidentally, if you've just found yourself there wondering what the 13th, 14th and 15th Amendments are, that alone might be a good sign that we don't talk about this stuff in schools enough. And to be clear, CRT...
No, it's because we don't talk about... Again, it's like the gender debate. There's 15 million genders. No, there's not. There's 2, maybe 3 if you count hermaphrodites, maybe 4 if you colloquially, if you want to say trans people are a different gender. But that's it. That's it, just 4. And all of those are based on the sexual dimorphism. But people want to say, no, gender doesn't mean the same as your biological sex. It doesn't mean that. They want to redefine words, just like you're redefining critical race theory on purpose. And you're saying it's this what it means, this old meaning. But then you got people like even Max Kendi who say, the only cure for past discrimination is present discrimination. The only cure for present discrimination is future discrimination. That's what CRT is today. Things change. Things evolve over time. You're doing that with gender, but you're not saying, oh, no. The actual definition of critical race theories is what it meant when it was first founded, which we all know that was a Trojan horse to go after white people.
Is graduate level legal theory. So unless your 5-year-old is currently pursuing a law degree, they're not reading Kimberly Crenshaw. But critics of it argue that the ideas behind CRT are being taught in schools and often present a hyperbolically distorted version of what those ideas are. And a key person here is this man, a conservative activist named Christopher Rufo. He claims CRT is actually a revolutionary program that would overturn the principles of the Declaration and destroy the remaining structure of the Constitution.
Yes, it is actually that, John. I know you're going to say it's like not, but it is that, because these people say that democracy is evil.
It just isn't. It isn't that. But in the wake of the George Floyd protests, just as America was beginning to grapple with systemic racism, Fox News began featuring Rufo on air a lot as part of their efforts to swing that pendulum back hard. And in one appearance, he pointed to diversity trainings in government as evidence of CRT's influence. And he spoke directly to President Trump through the camera about what he wanted to see happen.
The president and the White House, it's within their authority and power to immediately issue an executive order abolishing critical race theory trainings from the federal government. And I call on the president to immediately issue this executive order and stamp out this destructive, divisive, pseudoscientific ideology at its root.
Now, did Trump see that? I don't know. Is the Pope a Catholic? Is the reason Big died the fact that Carrie didn't call 911 fast enough? The answer to all those questions is yes, because Mark Meadows, Trump's chief of staff, has since revealed President Trump saw that interview. And when Rufo said, I call on the president to immediately issue this executive order, quote, that's what we did. Which is weird. There should be more steps than that. It shouldn't just go, 1, yell your wish at the president, then 2, it happens. Ideally, one...
You know what? There probably was more steps than that. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe it was just that simple, and that's, pretty ridiculous. But there were probably already discussions about this, and Donald Trump was probably going, we can't go around saying that like one race is superior or inferior, any of that stuff. That's not what this country's about, which again is what CRT does. CRT says white people are evil, and all the other races are superior to them. And when we get rid of white people, it's going to be like peace and harmony and kumbaya all over the country.
And with that, CRT, or crucially, Rufo's definition of it, was suddenly absolutely everywhere. Fox News kept pushing it, mentioning the term critical race theory nearly 5,000 times last year alone. And the network zeroed in on its supposed use in schools, with Rufo telling Fox's audience that CRT has really become the default ideology of the public education system.
It has. It is the default ideology of the public education system. I know this because if I say anything even remotely anti-CRT, in my classroom from schools who've gone through the public school system, who are young adults now, I get in trouble. I'm a white supremacist.
And what Rufo has been cleverly doing is cherry-picking the worst examples that he can find of lessons in classrooms or training materials for teachers and saying, that is CRT. And he's openly admitted that he's been engaged in a deliberate rebranding exercise, tweeting, "We have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. The goal is to have the public read something crazy in the newspaper and immediately think critical race theory."
Take that out of context, it doesn't really make any sense. But if you read the full context here, we will eventually turn it toxic, referring to the phrase, as we put all of the various cultural insanities under that brand category. Yeah, you could again change the word even further to be like, oh, it includes gender issues, it includes all of these different things that we're seeing that are woke these days, which is what he's trying to do. But I don't think you should do that. I think you should keep each individual element of wokeness separate. And then it goes on to say the goal is to have the public read something crazy in the newspaper and immediately think critical race theory, right? But then the larger context is we have decodified the term and will recodify it to annex the entire range of cultural constructions that are unpopular with Americans. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to just make critical race theory include all of the woke stuff. Everything woke, oh, it's critical race theory. Not exactly accurate, but I can understand how that could be beneficial to getting rid of woke stuff. So I would say don't do that. I just call it all woke. Don't call it critical race theory. Critical race theory is a subcategory of wokeness. Moving on.
Critical race theory. And the thing is, it fucking worked. Because whenever you hear CRT now, you are not hearing about the academic discipline. You're hearing about a category so broad, it encompasses both the craziest thing in the newspaper and also, crucially, any conversation about race that someone does not want to have. And look.
And who wanted it to be that way? This is not started by the people who are against CRT. This is started by the people who are for CRT. And they want to say, hey, look, you got to study critical race theory and understand how white people are oppressing us. All white people are the devil. Haven't you heard that phrase? All white people are evil. This is not anything new.
I am not saying discussing race in a classroom is easy or even always done well. Experts in this field will readily admit that.
So they go into a CBS interview, which I don't think I can share because of copyright, but the interviewer asks this black woman right here, has she seen bad examples of teaching about race in the schools? But as we're going to see in a moment, all of this teaching about race that they refer to is CRT. And this lady says, oh yeah, of course I have. We're human. People make mistakes. And it's like, yeah, when you're talking about how white people have privilege and other people don't, that's CRT, period. Hands down. No questions. Do not pass go. Do not collect $100. Something you don't need to teach about at all in public school.
Teachers are human and can make mistakes. And the fact is, you can find examples of clumsy lessons. One school used a privilege bingo card, which sure seems like a glib way to handle a very serious subject.
All right, let's take a look at the bingo card here. You have a native English speaker, comfortable walking outside alone, heterosexual, have your own bedroom. Both parents went to college, white, Christian, never been racially profiled. Involved in extracurricular activities, never worried about food. Parents are married, feel represented in media, cisgender, drive, get driven to school, born in country of residence, feel safe around police officers, able-bodied, never lost a loved one. What does that have to do? What does never have? You can lose a loved one no matter what. That's ridiculous to say, oh, you have privilege because you've never lost a loved one. Really? Well, you haven't lived very long. Either your children. This is school. Probably haven't lost a lot. Maybe a grandparent, right? Employed, no speech impediment, mentally healthy, military kid, male. Oh, okay, military kid. Yeah, because poor people can't go into the military. Unprivileged people can't go into the military. Okay. This sounds an awful lot like CRT to me. What do you think?
Another classic lesson over the years has been to teach about prejudice metaphorically by dividing a classroom up by eye colour, with brown-eyed people, for instance, being the lowest tier and then being treated terribly. And if you do that in a diverse classroom and think for even a second about who is more likely to have brown eyes, you can probably immediately see just how badly that lesson could go.
Yeah, because, John Oliver, you have brown eyes. I have brown eyes. The majority of the human population has brown eyes. Yeah, you're going to find nearly every person who is Asian, Hispanic, black, has brown eyes. So yeah, it's skewed by race as well. But where does this match up with reality? How is it that we are not allowing black people to do things in the country? How is it we're not allowing Hispanic people? How is it we're not allowing Asian people, Native American people to do things in the country? Please tell me. Please point to the laws.
That actually happened in at least one school in the Chicago area, and the reason I know that is that this kid was in the class that day, and she's one of our writers now. Ali, what did you think of that lesson?
It was pretty fucked up.
Yeah, I bet it was. But the fact is, many educators are working very hard to find age-appropriate ways to talk about race and racism in the classroom. And if you do it right, you don't stop at the civil rights movement. You tell the story all the way to the present day, which kids want and need. They have questions about what they can see with their own eyes, and they deserve good answers. And it is, frankly, far better for them to have these discussions in a supportive, educational environment. But the panic over CRT threatens to shut those conversations down. And that is not all it is likely to do, because some pushing this panic the hardest are actually using it to advance a much bigger agenda that they've wanted for a very long time, and that is school choice. Basically, letting parents take tax dollars afforded to the public schooling of their kid and use them at any school they like. Here is Chris Rufo again, laying out that exact strategy.
First, we have to just get it out of schools. We have to ban it and abolish it. But in the long term, what we need to do is give every parent in this country a right to exit failing institutions. No child should be trapped in a failing public school that violates his sense of conscience, that violates the values of the parents. Every parent should take those education dollars anywhere that they wish.
Right.
School choice will liberate people, it will empower people, and it will actually depolarize some of these national fights that we've seen.
Sounds like a democratic solution to the problem, right? You go where you want your money to go. How is that bad? Let's see what John Oliver has to say. I'm sure he's going to tell us how.
So you're doing all of this to tone down partisan fights, are you, Chris? Very cool of you. You've probably noticed that general wave of calm, chill vibes sweeping the nation lately. If there is one word I would use to describe every image coming out of a school board meeting these days, it is depolarized. Look, it is not just...
Of course, he had nothing to say about that solution to the problem. Nothing.
Rufo. Conservative organisations that have long pushed for school choice, like the Heritage Foundation and Freedom Works, have poured money into this fight. And you should know, this is just nothing new. There is a long history of responding to racial panic with a push for school choice. In fact, the roots of the school choice movement trace back to the Brown versus Board of Education decision, when southern states adopted voucher programs to facilitate the creation of private schools called segregation academies. And some of those taking advantage of school choice today sure seem to be doing some heavy indoctrination of their own. Take Florida. It is one of the states that allows public money to go to voucher schools, and a few years back, an investigation into some of them found commonly used textbooks that downplayed the horrors of slavery. One of them is this one, America, Land I Love, which has all the kind of bullshit that you would expect, that the Civil War was fought for states' rights. But it also states that during the antebellum period, the slave who knew Christ had more freedom than a free person who did not know the Saviour. Which is not just offensive, it is profoundly stupid. Any kid reading...
Okay, so I don't know if this is a textbook or not. It says right here, America, Land I Love, in Christian perspective, that should not be allowed to be taught in schools. We already have separation of church and state. If the schools are using this book, that is a violation of separation of church and state, and that should not be allowed. Now, maybe it's being taught in a private school. That's a different story. So you're using a really piss-poor example. Does he have more? Let's find out if he has more. Maybe there's a whole bunch of them.
Absolute trombone slide of a sentence would instantly drop 2 full grades. It sounds less like something you'd find in a textbook and more like something you'd find crocheted on a throw pillow in Paula Dean's living room. So if you want to talk about racial indoctrination of school kids, this might be a better place to start. But the thing is, even a manufactured panic is a panic. Those parents at school board meetings are genuinely angry, and as any little league coach knows...
So those parents, how did they learn that their students were being taught about race in school and being taught that white people are evil in school? I mean, how did that happen? What a weird thing. They just made it up, right? They just went there and said, don't teach our kids the racism. Or maybe their kids were being taught racist ideology, and then they went to the school board meeting and said, what are you doing? Don't be stupid.
Once you reach a critical mass of angry white parents, there will be consequences. In Texas, this...
Yeah, it's angry white parents. Those are the ones that we need to worry about, the white ones. What does that have to do with anything? Especially considering, John, you're also white. Why are you against your own people? I don't understand this.
This high school principal was forced out of his job after being accused at a school board meeting of promoting CRT by someone who wasn't even a parent at his school.
Yeah, that's allowed. My tax dollars pay for the schools here where I live. I don't have any children. I'm allowed to go to the school board meetings and say, hey, look, you can't be doing this stuff because it's harming my community. What are you doing? My tax dollars pay for this. I have a voice. It's that simple, stupid.
And in Tennessee, this current affairs teacher was fired for not giving varying points of view after he gave students a Ta-Nehisi Coates article and showed them Kyla Janae Lacey's poem, White Privilege. And he actually had a pretty decent response to that.
So I listened to this woman here, Kyla Jenny, I think is her name. I listened to her poem, the white privilege poem. Yeah, it's pretty much what you would think. You know, white people are evil and they're holding black people back, and you think that you've given us every opportunity, but you haven't because you're liars and cheats. That's basically what it is. So it basically tells white people that they're evil, and you would put that into a public school. But I'll try to remember to leave a link to it down in the description or the comments or something. So go ahead and look for that if you. It's like 3.5 minutes long, something like that. So anyway, moving on.
That criticism.
I think, to me, the varying viewpoint is Kyla Janae Lacey and is Ta-Nehisi Coates. Those are perspectives that my students aren't exposed to on a daily basis because, you know, we live in that white, dominant, evangelical environment.
Right.
No, your students are exposed to that daily. I'm exposed to this notion on a regular basis. I thought I lived in a white evangelical environment. Yeah. So I don't know what to tell you other than you're full of crap, but let's move on.
When you live in a mostly white environment, the voices of black people can be the varying point of view, and not just on current events.
Isn't that true for any demographic? If I move to Africa and I live in, say, Ghana, am I going to be the alternate point of view because I'm white? I mean, think about it. We're so bad here. We have a white point of view. How dare we? Not that there's such a thing. It's just a life point of view. It's not a white point of view. It's a life point of view. What are you, stupid? The fact that they keep saying that look, there's a white point of view, there's a black point of view, there's a Hispanic, that's the problem. You say there's a point of view, and this is it. It doesn't have anything to do with race.
Either on lots of things that white people might otherwise assume, even trivial ones, like it's okay to go out in a blizzard in shorts, and...
No, it's not okay, and I've said that for years. I've even said that on this channel. What the hell are you doing wearing even 2 shirts and a pair of shorts? Are you hot or are you cold? Make up your freaking mind. Shorts are to be cooled off. Multiple layers, long sleeve shirts are to be warmed up. Don't combine the two.
Unfortunately, though, those situations are now only likely to become more common. Since January of last year, 37 states have introduced bills or taken other steps that would restrict teaching critical race theory or limit how teachers can discuss racism. And the justification for these has often been more than a little flimsy. Here is one Tennessee lawmaker explaining why he was pushing for his state's bill.
Listen to the following quotes from an email forwarded to me concerning a 7-year-old girl in Williamson County. The little girl told her mother, "I'm ashamed that I'm white." The daughter then asked her mother, "Is there something wrong with me? Why am I hated so much?"
Okay, I hear that, I really do. But the thing to do in that situation isn't to pass a law limiting the discussion of race in the classroom. It's to ask literally one follow-up question, like, what was happening to make you think the other kids hate you? Or did any adult step in when you felt this way? Or do you even exist? Because you should know, when reporters looked into this, they found no parent had come forward to that school's principal, teachers, or district officials with that complaint, and administrators there weren't able to pinpoint any students who might be upset or lessons that could have been upsetting. And if that is...
Okay, so that's one example of a falsehood of this. You're going to have falsehoods of every situation. You're gonna have falsehoods and lies. And where are the people that were beating themselves up or putting on makeup to look like they had been beaten up? They were white, and they said this happened to me when I went to see Black Panther. Those people are scumbags. You don't lie about this stuff. There's no need to. Black Panther spoke for itself. It's that simple.
But that lawmaker actually illustrates the problem facing legislators currently trying to outlaw something that they cannot define. Because what are you then going to do? Pass a law saying kids can't feel bad? Well, it turns out, yes, because that is exactly what Tennessee did. They passed a law prohibiting any teaching that would cause discomfort, guilt, anguish, or distress solely because of the individual's race or sex, which is very broad.
Well, I don't know what was intended with this law, but it seems to me that if you're teaching history from a point of view of saying, hey, look, white people oppressed black people, therefore they're bad, other than going, hey, look, there was oppression of different races of people. There was this thing called slavery that was largely race-based, not entirely race-based, mind you. And that happened in the past. It was commonplace practice. In fact, it's even commonplace today, but we don't have it in the Western world anymore because it's illegal. We've recognized that we need to treat people better than that. What do you know? We're actually trying to correct our past behaviors and move forward in a way that is kinder to everybody on Earth. Wow, what a concept.
And look, the thing is, we have talked before on this show about the multiple problems with teaching kids a sanitised version of US history and how, as far back as a century ago, groups like the United Daughters of the Confederacy were reshaping textbooks to downplay its horrors. And it seems, here we go again, I guess. Because lawmakers are trying to micromanage school curriculums, sometimes pretty ineptly. A bill proposed in Virginia contains a section listing some of the founding documents that is okay to teach. A list that includes the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the first debate between Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, which I hope you know is not a thing that happened. But maybe the most insulting distortion of history is in the quote that every single anti-CRT activist seems to love to invoke.
You think about what MLK stood for. He said he didn't want people judged on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character.
You know, I believe it was Martin Luther King that said, you know, when he was talking about his children, that
he didn't want his children to be judged
on the color of their skin,
but by the content of their character.
Content of their character, not by the color of their skin.
Content of our character, not the color of our skin.
And the immortal words of Dr. Martin Luther King ring in our ears that we must judge others not by the
color of their skin,
but by the content of their character.
The left wants us to constantly focus on skin color. It's destructive. Martin Luther King Jr. is rolling over in his grave.
Yeah.
Yes, and how is that wrong? And the left is constantly telling us, hey, white people are mean to the black peoples and the brown peoples, etc. And the message from Martin Luther King was, not all white people are doing that. And that's like not all black people are bad. Not all Hispanic people are bad. Not all Asian people are bad. Not all natives are bad. We know this. Not all people of a given race are bad. That's just how it is, right? So I don't know how this is difficult for you to understand, John.
Here is the thing, though. That dream speech was clearly an aspirational goal, not a description of things as they stood. And in fact...
Yes, and which one of these people that you brought up here, John, said that was a clear description of how things are? They said, don't judge white people by the color of their skin. That's what they're saying. How is this hard to understand? Am I, like, delusional here?
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
King himself later put a pretty major asterisk on it.
I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare. And I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism.
Yeah, exactly. And in the book...
Yeah, so how, again, does that discount not treating white people as if they are the evil demons of the world? I don't understand this. What the hell is going on? John Oliver is either completely ignorant or he's lying. One of the two. Nobody said that everything was going to be 100% perfect. We're humans, we're going to make mistakes. But what they're saying is don't judge black people by the color of their skin, don't judge white people by the color of their skin, etc., etc. Don't judge anybody by the color of their skin, their racial background. Judge people by the content of their character, no matter what race they are. But now we're judging white people by the color of their skin. There's this whole movement, this critical race theory, saying, hey, look, white people are evil.
Published that same year. He wrote that while the majority of white Americans consider themselves sincerely committed to justice for the Negro, and they believe that American society is essentially hospitable to fair play and to steady growth toward a middle-class utopia embodying racial harmony, unfortunately, this is a fantasy of self-deception and comfortable vanity. So while it is clearly very appealing to create a version of history where MLK was a kind figure who existed solely to help white people win arguments, the truth is...
Really, do I even have to address that comment? Just so stupid.
Later reflected on his own message and challenged white people to look more deeply at themselves. And that is something the kids should absolutely be learning about in school. But the problem is, they won't if these laws continue. A white parent could plausibly claim that reading MLK's writing made their child feel discomfort on the basis of their race. And some of these laws seem designed to bend schools' curriculums to the sensibilities of the most conservative, alarmed parents. In Florida, Ron DeSantis is pushing a Stop Woke Act. That was him unveiling it just a minute ago, with Chris Rufo, by the way, right behind him. And that would give parents private right of action to sue if they think their kids are being taught CRT. And all of these laws...
Very simple. Don't teach your kids CRT. You don't need to be teaching about race specifically in schools. You teach about history and how things were done in the past and how that was racially unequal. But don't sit here and go, well, see, it's not equal today because, the evil white man. It's just because of the evil white man. That's it. That's what it is. White men are evil. That's why things are not good now. That's why if you're not white and you're struggling, if you're not a white man and you're struggling, if you're not a man and you're struggling, it's all because of the evil white men. That's why. That's what critical race theory is teaching. John Oliver, if he doesn't know that, has been living under a rock, or maybe it's just because he's stupid, or maybe it's just because he's lying.
Are already having chilling effects. Book bans are on the rise around the country, and one Oklahoma school district has even told teachers simply to avoid using terms like diversity and white privilege. And look, here's the thing. You can ban all the books you want. You can try and legislate it away. But as any black woman on The Bachelor can tell you, talking about race is unavoidable. And it is not just unavoidable, it's essential, especially in the places where people are...
I always go to black women on The Bachelor for my opinions and thoughts.
most panicked about CRT. And this actually brings us all the way back to where this story began in Loudoun County, Virginia, where that school board meeting got so very far out of hand. Here is one of the leaders of the anti-CRT push there explaining just why she is so fiercely opposed to it being taught.
All right, so I don't think I can show this part of the segment because if you look at the screen, you can see that this interview was conducted by Showtime. Basically, this lady says that, hey, there's not really a lot of racism going on in Loudoun County. The hardships that black people face are primarily or entirely due to their behavior, their activities, what it is they do in their lives. Typical talking points of people who disagree with CRT. I try to approach it from a different point of view slightly because, you know, I have an open mind. Maybe there is racism. In fact, I know there is racism in the country. Is it systemic? No, it's not. That's just ridiculous to think that it is. Please prove to me. Please bring up evidence as to how it is systemic. That's what I need to see. There's no systemic. So, moving on.
Okay, so there's a lot of obvious red flags there, from confidently asserting there's not a lot of racism here to the I don't see skin colour to the you won't notice division so much if you just don't talk about it. And hey,
by the way, she didn't say that if you don't talk about it, you won't notice it.
If the problem with racism in America was only it's bumming Patty Menders out, then yeah, shutting up about it would probably solve the whole issue. But guess how long it takes for that conversation to take a real turn?
And then he never explains how long it takes, nor does the rest of the interview.
Wow. When you respond to someone mentioning young black men would like to be treated better by automatically envisioning them dressed terribly and acting disrespectfully while being arrested by the police, you are telling on yourself, Patty. You are snitching on your very soul. And as for her claim there that there is not a lot of racism in Loudoun County, you probably already assumed that that was bullshit, but you should know. An assessment of public schools there found that it was shocking the extent to which students report the use of the N-word. And I think as a society...
So first I want to say... you're looking at one person in Loudoun County and saying, hey, they are the authority over this here. One interview with one person who lives there. Okay, well, that's how we're going to do things. I mean, I'm glad I didn't do a whole lot of research for this. So now, when they say it is shocking, the extent to which students report the use of the N-word, is that with the hard R on the end or the A on the end of it? It's probably the one where it's the A and black people are using it to refer to other black people. That's probably what it is. Probably some female white students going, wow, I can't believe that they call each other that all the time and doesn't know the difference between the two. So, moving on.
We've now agreed white people should not be using the N-word a shocking number of times. And all of this brings us to the main point here. That for all the laws being passed to prevent discomfort or anguish on account of an individual's race, whose discomfort exactly are we prioritising here? Because kids of colour can tell you they don't get a choice to not talk about race and have it go away, like this graduate of Loudoun County Schools.
I do understand that many parents don't want their children learning about race at such a young age, but I beg to differ in that sense. We learn about race every day when we're the only colored kid in our classrooms, or when we're learning about slavery and all the heads turn to us. So one way or another, one group of students will learn about race before another. So we believe that it would be equitable if all students learned about race in the same context, so we can work together on it to improve our future.
My American history teacher in high school was a black man. There were black students in the class. Nobody looked at them when we were talking about slavery. So, wow. You are either lying, you're an idiot, you're making stuff up, or you just live in a racist area, or people have become so sensitive to this topic now because you keep cramming it down our throats that it's becoming a problem. Because it wasn't a problem when I was in high school. Nobody cared. We're just like, okay, whatever race, let's hang out. We don't care.
Yeah. Children of colour learn about race from a very young age. From realising you celebrate different holidays or get different safety talks, or the first time you go to a white...
You celebrate different holidays. Whose fault is that? That has nothing to do with race. Christianity's open to any race. The secular holidays in this country are open to every single race. What are you talking about? You need different safety talks? What are different safety talks? I was told, hey, if the police tell you to stop, you stop. If the police tell you to put your hands up, you put your hands up. When you are pulled over, you put your hands on the wheel and you keep them there. And you wait patiently for the police officer to address you. What the hell?
House, and you're served a casserole. You realise very quickly in that moment, we are different people with different cultures. So look, by this point, it should be pretty...
Oh, there it is, your different culture. Oh, it's a cultural thing, really. See, he tells on himself throughout this entire thing. They don't know what they're talking about. These people are so stupid.
The debate around critical race theory is both very loud and very, very dumb. But unfortunately, it is important to engage with it, because if we don't, the endpoint that we are heading toward is that honest discussions of race will be shut out of public schools, even as some parents fuck off the voucher academies where they can learn a version of history that's basically antebellum fan fiction.
Except that's not what's happening. We're trying to keep the falsities of race out of public schools. We're trying to go, hey, look, white people are not trying to hurt black people. Now, maybe there are some who are, but it's illegal to do that. Instead of going, oh, look, the entire system is built against black people, against Hispanic people, against Asian people. It's only for white people. Period. That's it. I don't understand why this is hard to understand, but whatever.
And I'm not saying that discussions on race will always be comfortable for everyone in a classroom, but think about it like this. When was learning and growing as a person ever really comfortable?
Something you would not know anything about, John, obviously.
The thing to do here isn't to run from those discussions or pass laws banning them. It is to learn how to have them better. Because for generation after generation, we've told school kids fairy tales about race in this country. And maybe it's time we stop doing that. Because all it's done so far is get us to the point that we're at right now, with full-grown adults insisting America can't be racist because we elected Obama twice, that racism will go away if we just don't mention it.
Morgan Freeman said the same thing, right? Morgan Freeman said, stop talking about race. It'll eventually go away.
How are we going to get rid of racism until...
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man.
And that Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech wasn't an aspiration we have yet to fulfill, but some kind of magic spell that ended prejudice then and there.
Nobody claimed that it was a magic spell that ended prejudice right then and there, stupid. What the hell? I mean, seriously.
That's gaslighting. That's what it is.
That is our show. Thank you so much for watching.
So that's the show, right? Thank you so much for watching. Whatever. You're an idiot, John. Wow. That was really, really bad. And, of course, I went down in the comments and read some of the comments, and all of them were all like, oh, it's so wonderful. There's so much racism. Oh, my God. It's so wonderful to listen to you talk about it, John. It's amazing. This needed to be addressed years ago. Indicating that our country is truly divided, and there's a schism in this country that cannot be mended, unfortunately. I don't know how we fix this. We just got to get people to stop being stupid. That's really what it boils down to. There are plenty of people who out-earn me who are black. There are plenty of people who out-earn me who are Hispanic. There are plenty of people who live a more comfortable life than I have who are not white, who are not male. Tragedy and difficulties knows no race. And you might be saying, well, we're making it worse in this country. And okay, show me how. Show me the evidence of how we're doing that. Please, because we've already passed the laws. We already have laws that you can't do that. I don't know what else we can do, right? The only other thing I can think of is don't be mean to people based on the color of their skin, which it goes every which way, though. There are people who are prejudiced against any different person for any different reason. So I don't know what to tell you about that. Anyway, that's all I got for this time. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed because YouTube doesn't subscribe to people every single day. You can find me over on Rumble and on Twitter. I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Thank you for watching. And now here's your palate cleanser.